My name is Niladri,
Niladri.
and right now, uh, you know, the last couple of days in Athens here
You've been here for how long?
since 26th of July 2011.
That's longer than me. Man, that's a long time.
Yeah, it's about 7 years now.
Yeah.
So I had come here on 26th of July 2011. That's the fall of 2011
Uh-huh.
for my doctoral program
And you came from
from India.
India. Where are you from in India?
Close to the east, close to Calcutta.
Yeah. Okay. I've never been there. That part of the country.
You recently visited India, right?
Yes. Yeah. I spent most of the time in the south and in Chennai and in the middle in Hyderabad and Mumbai. So did not go to Calcutta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's basically, I used to joke about it that I don't believe I'm on the same planet. It's so different.
Mm-hmm.
So,
What did you?
so for example, I went to school in Calcutta
Mm.
for my high school and then later. And if you look up, the population density in Calcutta is like 60,000 people per square mile.
Whoa.
So it would be like putting everyone in Athens into Kroger. Without the students, of course. Like how America is portrayed in popular news and media is very different from what you actually see. Because I remember the very first questions I had from younger relatives when I got accepted here at OU was, how far is school from Los Angeles, like Hollywood? So, well, that's the common perception, is that it's all glittering in America, unless probably they come and see what's about Southeast Ohio and the Appalachia and how. Yeah, but we had, as students growing up in Calcutta, we had some idea about the backstage America, or like the underbelly of America.
You did?
Yeah, because we were listening to Bob Dylan and a lot of other stuff which was coming out of the Vietnam War and the protests and stuff like that. So a couple of things the first few months I came here and tried to dig up here in Athens was locating Millfield.
Millfield.
I found out that there was a place called Millfield, and I come from an area in India which has coal mines.
Oh.
And in the late 70s, I guess, and we had heard stories about this, was a big accident that happened, which killed more than 200 people in India, which was actually a flooding in coal mines. So the next thing I did was to drive to Millfield and visit that area.
What did you think of it?
But it was not. I couldn't see anything there. It's not like they have a small museum which now has moved to Buckdale, and except for the shaft and I guess the brick construction things, I couldn't see anything there. But I have visited. I find a lot of dichotomy between these two societies is basically in India. What I think is there are a lot of social structures which are mostly impromptu and which are built out of need, and they serve a variety of purposes. But what I think here in the States, the systems are more structured and they're
Calcified.
It kind of propagates individual empowerment and kind of sustainability of the individual on its own. In India, probably the idea is more collectiveness, of more collective survival. So has been so far, but
Do you think that's changing?
Yeah, that's for economic pressures and the kind of models we are following.
Do you think it's harmful, or
I
is
don't know.
there a better or worse?
We have to decide what is sustainable. That's for the greater good. I'm not sure if there are models available as of yet as a yes or no answer. Evolution is a collective effort of all humanity throughout time. So you cannot just say that it's all benefit for the current time. It is a cumulative effect of all the strife of mankind. So you have to take this in a collective. I decided to take up a job at the Caribbean right now, probably as a teaching job, and probably after that I end up in India. Living here in America is mostly physically it's conducive for me, but probably philosophically it is not, because at times I feel that whenever I try to do something, I ask myself the question whether that particular action has a physiological or a philosophical relevance for me. So I find a better philosophical connect in India.
Even though haven't been there for 7 years.
Oh yes, because when I came here, I was already close to 40. So I had come with all my luggage here, my emotional and psychological backpack. In India. I remember doing a lot of volunteering work with Mother Teresa's organization, because our college was just right next to it in Calcutta. And I have seen her when she was traveling in her van. It was like she would sit in front and there was a light which used to glow, and we could see her sit in just next to the driver, and see her late, I think early 90s. I will miss about Athens is the serenity, and I will miss the friends I have made and my garden.
You have a garden?
Yes, I do. I did actually, and I would miss the public library. I volunteered here for about 4 months at a nursing home, and I met a few older friends. So that was an eye-opener for me to listening to their stories and about this place, and I will miss them and my university and my mentor and my friends. Especially growing up in Calcutta, we had this culture of music and music of resistance.
Yeah.
So that string, extended up to America, and we had Pete Seeger and Bob Dylan, and even we listened to songs which were Bengali translations of popular folk songs here in America.
What were you resisting?
Yes, yeah, it is basically resistance or a struggle against subjugation of human spirit. That's what it is. So that's the cry of the soul to be free. So all songs and plays and satire, things like that, around that subjugation of human spirit. What made you interested in filmmaking?
Oh my gosh, that's like I love movies since I was a kid. I told people recently my first memory of a movie theater was in Thailand at 4 years old. Movies for me isn't a passive experience. It's a way to channel and observe all the questions we talk about.
So you look at everything in frames? Is it?
Yeah, not yeah, not quite, but yeah, I'd say so now, because for me, there's always a sense of every frame of reality has a potential to be
A film.
a film. Yeah.
But life goes without editing, right?
Yeah, yeah. So Hitchcock once said, films are life without all the boring parts taken out.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes films are about the boring parts.
Yeah.
You know, that's something that I think is being missed. We now live in an environment where in films and most media, it's absolutely filled with highlights. There's a constant stimuli, so there's that sort of false idea that reality is nothing but highlights. Instagram, Facebook, the best of the best moments, always, and it's not true.
Yeah.
And that's why people are constantly bored, because it's like suddenly there's a gap and there's no stimuli.
They're afraid of gaps.
Right, and then there's so many ways to fill in them with distractions or medication or whatever you want to call it. A million songs pumped into your brain forever. For 24 hours. This interest that we both have in the Tibetan Buddhism and meditation is kind of, even though we've got to that interest in very different routes, is definitely part of this exploration of the gaps. People are constantly deteriorating their tolerance for it, which is very disturbing, in my opinion.
So, about your films, so you said that probably you would like to take it at a different level, like where you're professional and you earn your living out of movies.
Sure. But I don't even call it filmmaking, I call it storytelling. Because for now, I definitely do a more documentary approach, but I do want to idea of filmmaking that was instilled in me when I was a child, the idea of creating world building, and it's not false, it's about manifesting visions of play, of what could be, I find some of the most eye-opening, soul-opening works of art not to be documentary films, but fictional films. Stories are a way for us to explore what it is to be human.
You captured a lot of footage from India.
No, I didn't.
Recent visit?
I did not bring a camera to India.
Oh, because I see that everyone is doing the same thing these days. They're in India, they're vlogging, and they're talking about the experience.
I did document it, but I planned to write a book about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was using my camera phone to take pictures, and I was writing notes, but I made that real decision not to bring a video camera. It's an intentional choice not to be. I think it's very dangerous to have. I say dangerous in a very flippant way, but it's very dangerous to be glued to your recording device.
So that brings me to another interesting question: is like, as a person who is operating a camera from behind, is a different Brian from when you are without a camera?
Yes.
And so
yes.
What is that difference? Like, would you think your Indian visit was more of a personal journey, a subjective journey, than it was an objective view-finding expedition from...
Very, very personal, subjective journey. I actually made a video a while back with my friend who I visited in Washington, D.C. And in that video, she's calling me out while I'm recording, that as soon as I turn on the camera, I'm not there anymore. Given the fact that we as global individuals have access to all this technology to record every moment, it requires a bit of discrepancy to learn when to do what and to what degree. And it's different for everybody, but I'll give you a perfect example. So So you'd say like you go to a concert, right? A big musical concert, and in the old days, people didn't have the equipment to record the entire concert, you know, with unlimited battery and unlimited Wi-Fi or whatever. And so if you look at older pictures, you just see hands or maybe lighters with the rock and roll stars. But then now you'll see people doing this. And I mean, I've done it too, to record like, oh yeah, I want to take a picture of the fact that I was there. But some people, because their tolerance for this sense of how to filter reality and experience it has been so shifted by technology and the hive of the cloud, they won't turn it off. They will literally spend the entire time watching the concert through this and recording it so they could post it. And I find that very shocking. And because it's not just the act of doing that at a concert. I think if we're not careful, that's all we do. That's all we if we're not careful with our intentions and how this version of reality is hijacked by this sort of social media sharing. The dark side of this is the constant sense of unreplenishable emptiness. This lack of being able to sit alone with your thoughts, the inability to face the gaps of life without that sort of security blanket of the hive of sharing before you feel something. It's a loop, and that's what I mean when I say dangerous.
Just some people think about just recording as being creative. That's not a good correct idea, because it's just recording and just
like I'm not trying to say that I'm like some sort of like I know exactly where the line is, but my choice to not bring my video camera to India was part of that.
Because I can see how creativity can be hierarchical in terms of like excellence. Because just posting a video and just plugging two images together and then making a video is not as creative as you look at a thing and then you digest and then you create a new thing out of it. It's in recording, you are not doing anything new, you are just recording it. But what about writing a play? So you absorb an experience, a life experience, and that recreate it in your writing. That is more creative. That's what I mean by hierarchy. Like you synthesize, you write a poetry or you write a play on that context and that incidence. So that is more creative. Like when you create from scratch and try to build those characters. Well, maybe fiction is a very high form of creativity.
Well, that's what I mean. So in that terms of hierarchy, I do think, and this is slightly an overgeneralization, but I think a lot of people who can be creative are not, because they are sort of just using the recording device to just push buttons and then see what it does, and you can see it on the feed. And I think that sort of that's troubling to me.
Very surprised that you are without a camera in India. So
well, it's also
probably your viewers will miss some visual,
but
extravaganza.
Sure, but that doesn't mean I could go back. I would love to go back to India with a camera, like, but that first experience was for me, and like that's another thing I think about when I think about people, anyone now who, that what Andy Warhol said that everyone now is a celebrity for 15 minutes. I mean, everyone now is a celebrity for everyone wants to be viewed. To worry about my audience before a living is also something that I am against. Problem with this sharing and technological merging is that sometimes people forget who they are. because they're constantly worried about, I need to do something to get the most views. I need to do something in accordance to how I think my potential viewers will view my reality that I'm presenting. So I must act accordingly. It's a very messy, sticky sense of identity, and it's because I didn't want the camera and the constant documentation to take over my own sense of purpose. You know, it's still I control the camera and not the other way around. It's become a compulsion though.
Yeah, it's become compulsion. It's a very, very, that's what the whole probably strive for Buddhist meditative purposes, to acquire mastery on this transition from being objective to subjective. That is the whole thing about. For example, we always think about death, for example. It's an objective view. It's happens subjectively only once, So it's always about most of the things in life.
It's not that I'm getting at it, but that's my attempt at getting at something universal. It's a shared community of existence, and we're all trying to paint a picture somehow.
Right.
Yeah. This lack of time is also a terrible societal construct. I mean, because of the systems that are in place for survival of hierarchies of power, of capitalism, and how many of us are forced to spend our time and our critical time not doing what we can do for ourselves and each other, but to serve money. It's very
that's why the onus lies on people who have the options, and for them to make the right choices, to take those breaks, and as you said, that to reconsider or rethink, revisit their pace, because they have the choice.
Yes, we do. Like many of us do.
Yes,
and to different degrees of it, but many of us are not those people in Calcutta who are at the very bottom and the margins.
That's right.
And it's that degree of our shared responsibility and our shared experience and our shared duty to each other,
right?
To awaken each other's sense of agency within this, because on some level we do not have a lot of agency. We are constricted by time, space, our age, our societal constructs of our gender, our spiritual, our geographical places. I mean, I would love to go to India right now. I don't have the money. I don't have I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I don't have the resources to do this. If I do it, then I'm on one end I'll go, but then on the other end I don't have anything here to back me up, because I don't have the societal net to help me in that freedom.
As a society, we need to time to time reevaluate our destination, our speed,
because we're all going to die in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. But as one good thing that's happened over the last few decades is people are getting more connected. People are getting more connected. They are sharing more information, and thereby they are almost like on the same page, and the fluidity have increased for traveling and sharing experiences, and that helps to evaluate how things are shaping up for us all together.
Right, and that's just the positive end of the negatives of the spectrum of the oversharing, and then it's that balance between.
Yeah, but at least now that probably there is a place called India, where the pace of life is a little slower,
right.
where there is a lot of reflection on one end, and then people in India, they know that there are people here in America. They're also concerned about their lives and how things ought to be for every one of us together. So
that is positive.
That's very positive.
And even like you said, when you were younger and you heard Bob Dylan and Pete Seeger on the radio, that was an older form of that sharing of information. Yes. But now it's even more expansive and quicker. But it's the seed of the same thing.
Yeah. Because of technology, now we can share very faster. And given all these luxuries and all these entitlements, it's our responsibility to, become more collective, rather than, again, mushrooming those ideas of individual, growth, and it's like silos, entrapped development or entrapped prosperities. The very important questions of life, that has to be the agenda.
I mean, I still have yet to write to everyone that I ever met on the conference that I went to. I went to a permaculture conference. And, the thing is, I've started writing back to people, but they too are also busy or caught up in their own lives. And I don't know exactly when I'll hear from some of them or if I will ever hear from them again. And I want to go back in part to create what I want to create in the Midwest. Is what I'm doing now is a a film company, but to also explore issues of humanity and spirituality and nature especially. But to link that up back with India would be great. But the thing is, I have to have something to bring back. I don't want to just go there on vacation and say hello to people. I want to have this something to hold. Maybe we can connect. And so it's going to be very hard. It's going to be a long journey for me. But it's finally a mission that I'm very comfortable with. I remember how it felt even in myself when I did not have this mission, when I did not have the confidence that I had something to offer to the world, right? And when you think about students going to college, that's the whole point, right? Is to go to school to discover your gifts, to discover what you can contribute, to discover how, and not having that is actually very maddening.
Yes,
it makes you insane because you're just like, I'm just
worthless.
Yeah, I'm just taking up carbon. What I do like about the new world growing now, especially young people, is that they clearly want to contribute positively, but the structures of our society are all these old structures that do not allow them to. And there's also a problem with the older generation of people that sort of retain their, in a spiritual sense too. They hold on, right? They're holding on to power structures. They're holding.
What that brings me to another interesting observation is the constant dichotomy of things with us humans. For example, in India, you will find that mostly, despite of the teeming millions around you, you still try to, and as far as I know, that's been the philosophy there forever, is that you walk with your own silos of your own nirvana. That's a very, very contradictory thing, that you never connect, despite being said that there are societal structures. They are within the families, and that's kind of structure within your own community. So you are kind of walking with your own aura of understanding and consciousness, and then you feel that, well, that's all there is to life that you connect with, is with yourself. But coming here, and as I talk to people and also see what the Western world is about, so there are not many people around you, not many, but still the urge is to connect, to reach out. That's a very different, perspective I get when I come here and see people, is they want to connect, they want to reach out, they want to do, because probably the Western idea of life has been more external, what we call very erroneously as material. Is basically to be more connected with things around you. That makes perfect sense.
Mm.
So that's a dichotomy is what I wanted to also highlight, that you said that older people trying to hold on to their power structures and old constructs of definitions of society and institutions, but at all stages, at all walks of life, in all walks of life, for all people, there's a constant this dichotomy. That's what it's about.
That's refreshing too, that you having not growing up here could say that, and that's refreshing for me to hear that, because I do feel like I have a more of a negative view of like the Western, but like you're saying now, it's not Western at all. It's just a dichotomy.
See the advantages of being material. It's evident everywhere. You're fighting with diseases. You're capable of vaccinating your child. You're having a safer life. On the contrary, you see what has the introvertedness and self-realization of human being got you? Nothing. That's a kind of illusory peace that you get. It's kind of a subjugation to your environment. Nothing more than that. If you are trying to debate between the material and the non-material world, it's of inconsequential results. It is meaningless. So probably the people in the West are kind of burdened by the guilt of being material. It is constantly fed like being a bad thing. I would say it's more exteriorization of your existence,
which can also be hijacked by commercialism. And
well, that is an externality you have to that's we are in such an infancy of our evolution that people are trying with so many things, and probably will realize that that's not our doing. It will be consuming us eventually. So it's a process of learning. The idea is to think as a collective.
With all our separate gifts, forming a positive, cohesive whole.
Yes, absolutely. Struggle has always been for the freedom of the soul, the freedom of. So culturally, probably, the voices that ought to come as independent, voices of strength and voices of rebellion. It's probably nowadays missing in India, but the greatest of rebels have also, like the Buddha is probably the best example.
Buddha and Gandhi.
Yeah. So it's a cyclical process, and everywhere it's kind of it's in waves. So and all these waves may not be in sync with each other. So at some point of time, people rise here and there and make their voices heard. But there's a lot of optimism from the American society to lead the way. It's not to prove the American is the best, but to prove that the greatness of human endeavor and human spirit still exists. So that's the optimism that I have felt over the years I have been here and interacting with people, that I feel very reassured.